and running up massive trade deficits by offshoring the industry and the professional service jobs, that I think it's directed at calling attention to the fact that American leadership is not long for this world, that it's run out because the resource base for it has run out.
Doctor, when we come back, let's talk about how you see this unfolding then, and how an attack on Iran factors in, and why the establishment seems to think in their own writings that a large global war, as the Rand Corporation said 2 years ago, would somehow prop up the Anglo-American Dutch / Israeli alliance, and what you see happening in the U.S. economy. We'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen. Stay with us. But when I'm sitting back, at 11 o'clock at night reading a book, about to turn the light out and go to bed, it just really dawns on me. We really do have a bunch of Ponzi scheme crooks that wrecked the most wealthy, powerful, wonderful nation in history. And we've gone from the apple of the world's eye, the light of liberty, to the country that promotes all these illegal wars. We've just basically invaded Costa Rica with 44 ships. It's got their country in an uproar. We're a nation that promotes torture, secret arrest, and it's only getting worse. Dr. Roberts, as we went to break, I threw out the question, how do you see this unfolding, and how does an attack on Iran play into it from your historical research?
Well, Alex, they want to attack Iran for several reasons, and I suppose the most important is this ideology of American hegemony. And this is the trouble with the one world stuff. If the Americans talk about one world, what they mean is an American world. and so if you look at the Middle East, what's the remaining independent countries? That is, what countries are not American puppet states? And we have only Iran and Syria. Now, the reasoning, I'm told from the people that I still know in Washington, is that Syria they can ignore, because if they knock off Iran, Syria will simply voluntarily become an American puppet state. And so they're after Iran. They would love to have one of their color revolutions and get rid of it without military means, but they want to get rid of it at any cost. And you can see that's the reason for all the years of demonization and lies. And most recently, when the United States somehow got the Security Council of the UN to go along with sanctions. What did the Americans do? The minute they got the UN sanctions, Washington then added their own unilateral sanctions.
Which Ron Paul has pointed out on the House floor, and he's read the international law and our national law. That's an act of war. And now in Germany, they're not fueling Iranian aircraft. I mean, this is insane.
Yes, but you see what Washington is doing, it's using the UN sanctions as a basis for its own. Well, the Russians said, you've double-crossed us. And the media will never differentiate between the UN sanctions, which are not so severe, and the American sanctions that have been added to them. And the ships that we have dispatched, allegedly, to stop Iranian ships on the high seas and inspect their cargoes, another act of war, they're not going to simply be enforcing the UN sanctions. So we've double-crossed the Security Council again, and we're hoping that some sort of instant will come out of this so that we can have some justification. I don't know what happened to the... so we can have some kind of a justification for the attack on Iran. Now, if you go back to Bush's speech, it was January 29, 2002, when he says there's this axis of evil. There's Iran, Iraq, and North Korea. And he sort of brought together these three countries which have nothing in common. North Korea is the last communist country that's isolated in the Far East. Iran and Iraq had just been fighting an 8-year war, 1 million casualties.
One is secular, one is Shiite. They're at each other's throats.
Well, one was Sunni, one Shiite, who've been at odds since the 7th century. Nothing in common, and yet Bush's neoconservative word crafters created this notion of a common enemy that we face. So I think, what they're hoping is they can somehow come up with a color revolution, that with all this pressure on, that the forces within Iran that we've been subsidizing will somehow come out on top to avoid the conflict with America. But if not, I think they're prepared to try to have some sort of a major military knockout blow, because anything less than that, if Iran responds, they probably could block the oil flows from the Persian Gulf.
All right, stay there, Doc. Long segment coming up. I want you to continue to break that down. And when we come back, I'm going to also get into the fact that this is an act of war, saying they're going to board their ships. And Iran has said, you start boarding our ships, we're going to board your ships. And that's exactly what Cheney wanted back in 2007. It came out in New Yorker magazine, was to actually attack our own ships and blame it on Iran. So we may see a false flag in the mix here as well. We'll be right back. Okay, going back to Dr. Paul Craig Roberts. You were finishing up with Iran and talking about trying to get our ships in there, in their own waters, boarding all of their ships, saying they're not allowed to have fuel, they're not allowed to have any finished goods. I mean, this is a classic act of siege, of war, and the Iranians are saying they're going to resist. I remember Bush 5 years ago admitted in a White House press release that they had al-Qaeda-connected terror groups inside Shiite Iran staging terror attacks. Obama admits that's continuing. I mean, I'm not saying Iran is run by saints, but they haven't attacked us, and they have put up with a lot. I mean, our criminal government admits they're in there bombing the daylights with terrorists inside Iran, and Iran lays there and takes it. But I can't see Iran putting up with its ships being boarded. I mean, and how is our media going to spin that? How dare them Iranians? They wouldn't let our military board their ships. I mean, is there no end to the evil that this country won't engage in?
Apparently not. I mean, look, the Israelis just got away with boarding the aid flotilla to Gaza, killing all those people, and nothing has happened. Once again, we protected them diplomatically, so if we let them do it, we probably figure we can do it too. So I don't think, the real question is, why does the rest of the world go along with this? Now, my answer to the Europeans is they're all American puppet states. We've bought their leadership, and they're our puppets. But why Russia and China? For some reason, Russia has never delivered the sophisticated missile air defense that they contracted with Iran to supply. And they haven't delivered it because we keep telling them not to. So why does Russia allow us to interfere with their contract with Iran? And then look at China. China has massive energy investments in Iran, and China's economy is still going gangbusters. They need energy. And our plan for dealing with China is to cut them off from energy. So why would China go along with this? And it seems to me that those are questions that I don't know the answer to. But the rest of the world is somehow complicit in this. And it makes no sense, because the world knows that Bill Clinton lied about the Serbian, Kosovo, Albanian dispute. We know that Bush lied about Iraq and weapons of mass destruction. We have the International Atomic Energy Agency reports from the inspectors on the ground that there's no diversion of enriched uranium from the nuclear energy program in Iran to a weapons program. We have all 16 American intelligence agencies last year issuing a unanimous report that Iran abandoned its nuclear weapons program in 2003, that was 7 years ago. Why doesn't somebody ask the president, how do you know they have a weapons program when your own intelligence agency says they don't? How do you know they have weapons when all the Atomic Energy Agency reports say they don't? How can they possibly have weapons when your own authorities say they're not capable of enriching uranium to that extent? No one asks these questions. Nobody in the media asks them.
And Iran has tried on, 3 separate occasions to give their uranium under UN supervision to the French, to the Turks, to the Brazilians, to enrich it where it's at a level that can't be used in weapons, and that only enrages the United States and Israel more. I mean, it's just a fact. We are the bad guys in this. We've overthrown Iran's government twice in the last century, and it's just outrageous that they're positioning us this. But from every expert I talked to, Ray McGovern, top CIA analyst, and many others, and just common sense in studying the region,